In the name of God, most benevolent, the most merciful, in honor of the original being and the unconditional system admin beyond this world room. Hello, everyone. You are listening to an uncommon man's perspective on what is actually going on in reality. And I want to zoom in on something I've noticed. Pretty much my understanding of human reality is that a certain range of it has been made conscious and has been symbolized. And when you look at human beings, we are speaking a sort of common language of reality. And sometimes when I see human beings talk to one another, like two people can talk to each other and it seems like they're agreeing on the same thing. But I find that every person, due to their unique DNA and their unique internal position as a being, just your unique position in the space-time continuum, we are engaging with reality that is good enough, or close enough. Pretty much, I've watched different states of reality, different types and modes, and different moments, pretty much. Okay. I want to talk about something that tends to be an uncomfortable topic. You don't see a lot of people talking about it, and usually when they talk about it, they try to act above the idea. In this lecture, I will explain why desperation is from another world and why you, as a human being in this world, need to take this lesson. You will get it experientially, all human beings do, to get a sense of its realism. Okay, sorry about that, guys. To begin, my attention drifted for a little bit. All right, folks. This is today's lecture. It's a different morning for me. I guess a different state of mind. I'll begin this lecture by saying that I'm someone who, in this lifetime, has experienced various moments of desperation. I want to open up the psychology of it. I want to explain how there is a desperation for the body, there's a desperation for the mind, and there's a desperation for the soul. Okay, and how the quality of desperation, even at times, is not a worldly intention. Okay, or I will explain it. What I mean by this desperation is not from this world, because it is a psychological position more than it is just an objective position, even though objectively a person can be desperate. Okay. First things first, I've prepared a research component for this lecture. I'm going to read that first. We're going to read the research component first, and then I'm going to dive into it, and then I'm going to share examples from my own life and hopefully guide the new generations that are coming through. Okay, so you have a less of a turbulent experience of what I mean by this, because it has to do with your intelligence, it has to do with your creativity, it has to do with your ability to be aware of, and the expansiveness of the range of what you notice when you open your eyes as a being. If voice is not audible, let me know. Let's go into the research component. We're going to go into the research component, folks. I'm going to read this for you. Just pay attention to this. I'm telling you, there is a value in this lecture, and I will show it. So first, the word desperation. So we're going to enter the research component. This is AI generated ChatGPT 5.2. So first, we're going to look at what desperation means. The word desperation casually, but its original meaning is far more precise and revealing than modern usage suggests. To understand the concept properly, we must begin with its definition and etymology, because language serves psychological truth long after people forget it consciously. Desperation comes from the Latin desperatio, derived from desperare, meaning to abandon hope, to give up expectation, or more literally, to unhope. The root sperare means to hope, to trust, to expect, and the prefix removal or removal. Thus, desperation originally mean urgency, intensity, or desire. It means the internal state in which hope has been withdrawn. classical sense is not someone who wants strongly, but someone who no longer believes that reality will meet their need through normal continuity. Exactly, folks. Exactly, folks. That's the definition of desperation. Okay? Is anybody listening? I mean, let's hope you're going to listen in the future, okay? I don't know. God doesn't believe I deserve, I guess, in this moment, big audiences. But maybe I don't. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should just, talk and die as God knows. And whatever. So the definition, it says desperation. It says a desperate person in the classical sense is not someone who wants strongly, but someone who no longer believes that reality will meet their need through normal continuity. So AI tells in the classical sense is not someone who wants strongly, but someone who no longer believes that reality will meet their need through normal continuity. Okay. Historically, the distinction mattered deeply. In ancient and classical thought, desperation was not admired. It was seen as a failure of alignment with order. Greek and Roman philosophers treated despair and desperation as conditions arising when a person lost faith in logos, the rational unfolding structure of the world. To them, nature was not chaotic or scarce, but ordered and cyclical. A person became desperate not because the world had no options, but because that person lost in time, proportion, and process. Wow, wow, wow. Wow, wow, wow. Guys, you're going to thank me. Like, honestly, this is a good lecture. I know I don't sound like David Attenborough, but whatever. This is why desperation was often associated with recklessness, excess, and not as judgment, but as an observation is abandoned. Restraint and discernment soon follow. As history progressed, particularly through medieval and early modern periods, desperation took on theological weight. It was understood as a spiritual error, the belief that one's situation was beyond redemption or repair. Again, the core idea was not urgency, but service from continuity, the belief that the future was closed. By the time modern emerged, the concept was secularized, but not fundamentally changed. Desperation came to describe a mental state marked by cognitive narrowing, emotional urgency, and impaired foresight. What psychology added was clarity. Desperation is what happens when the mind collapses the future into the present and concludes that immediate action is the only remaining option. Exactly. You're desperate when you the future legit has collapsed into the present. You don't see a future. You're desperate to survive. You're desperate to do whatever. Do you understand? So it says desperate the future into the present and concludes that immediate action option. This is the critical point most people miss. Desperation is not simply, in quotations, wanting something badly. Desire can exist within patience, strategy, and self respect. Desperation, by contrast, is the belief that delay equals loss, that waiting is dangerous, and that force must replace timing. This belief is almost always false, but it feels true because the nervous system is dysregulated. The system no longer trusts continuity, it no longer trusts itself, it no longer trusts reality to unfold with coercion. Coercion. It no longer trusts reality to unfold without coercion. That means with force. Reality must happen with force. From the most advanced perspective, desperation is best understood as a state of misalignment with how reality actually functions. So, dear viewers, a quick pause here. Um, so, let me tell you what it is, especially for, I guess, men who are physically motivated um, by their visions. Um, you know, just think about it. Food for days, and you suddenly see any sort of food, you would eat it. Okay, what that means is desperation brings down the human standard. Okay, and so far, what we've read about it, there's way more for me to read about the research component, but it's this idea, it's a part of you. Desperation is, the way it was mentioned here, is that it's a spiritual error because you have lost hope. Do you know? For example, a guy likes a girl, and the guy feels like this girl is so unique and no one like her exists, and do you know? Something like that. You won't have better, you become desperate. If you become desperate, if you are desperate in the current possibilities you're. Okay, desperation is huge, guys. It starts when you're young, then in different situations in reality happens. I also believe that there's a subconscious program way harder to change. Do you know, like, we don't realize how important our childhoods are, right? And if our childhoods are too messed up, like, it makes us not be able, various like sectors of reality, right? You're listening to someone who was very shy and introverted when he was young, okay? And at the same time, I think of it this way: you are desperate, you don't know what to do, when you don't know what else can happen, when you can't see further, right? For example, if somebody's stuck in an elevator, desperation is a symptom of being stuck internally. Okay, this is why I'm saying desperation is not from this world. It's not, it doesn't seem as natural. See, like, see, in certain conditions it is worldly. For example, like an animal that needs help, like, it's desperate. Okay, right? But I'm saying, when you look at human psychology, imagine there, I'll give you an example. Imagine there's like a perfectly healthy man and a perfectly healthy woman. Okay, now these two are having a reality. Let's say they have a relationship that within it has safety, has respect, has shared meaning. These three are important in relationships. Okay, you could respect someone in a relationship, okay, but that person might not give a shit because they don't feel comfortable around you. You know what I mean? Like, you could be, somebody could feel safe around you, but they might not respect you. Do you know? And someone might understand you, but they might not feel safe around you, or they might not even respect you, but they understand you. Do you understand what I mean? And this is both ways, right? Because don't forget, relationships are mutual. Anytime one member of a relationship becomes more important, let me tell you, it's all about input. I don't know why. Like, hear it from somebody who's, like, from a designer's soul. We acknowledge reality with form, but we're experiencing reality throughout the day. We're not just experiencing, we're also experiencing subjective forms. And these subjective forms are not all based on outer experiences. You understand? That means a person can walk, let's say you're walking to the grocery store, okay, and you, for example, see someone, let's say, running toward for the bus. Imagine your mind for a second, imagined, like, what if this person could leap into the air and just catch the bus that way, like a giant leap, like from where they are, rather than running, right? So it was like your mind was witnessing content, active, based on the world, and then your mind activated that content. You are the human intelligence Your consciousness is activating existence by converting it into free will oriented meaning. Anyways, guys, there's more to read. I'm going to read it. Okay. It says, from the most advanced perspective, desperation is best understood as a state of misalignment with how reality actually functions. The natural world does not operate through panic. Biological systems signal need, regulate action, and return to balance. Even hunger in nature is a signal, not a command to abandon discernment. Desperation arises only when the human mind detaches from this regulatory intelligence and substitutes fear for timing. That means instead of you being patient, you feel you don't have enough time and you become desperate suddenly. If you're a desperate person, you need to practice patience. Okay. And I'm someone who I was a very desperate person when I was young. Okay. Because I could not be myself. I would see others being comfortable, expressing themselves, communicating, being something. And I would be standing there being like, yo, man, why can't I be myself? The point in my psychology where I did not accept my own meaning. I did not myself. I did not trust myself. I did not accept myself. And then you become like this starving man who's waiting for others to like move the moment. And that's disgusting. Like, and the disgusting, the cringiness of that comes, you experience it years later, not at the time. You didn't know your worth. Right. And that's like moments where it's of hilarious regret, where you're like, man, everybody was experiencing themselves for the I was lesser because something conditioned me that way. You might be acting desperate, but you may not be. You're just looking at things from the wrong angle. It says, I'm going to keep reading. That is why desperation feels alien, chaotic, and self-betraying. It is not an expression of life. It is a breakdown in one's relationship to life's rhythm. So in that example I was saying of two people, like if one of them suddenly stops, becomes desperate, do you understand? That means they don't feel mutual in the relationship. And if there's a partner in a relationship that has become desperate, is because the other partner did not maintain the balance. Okay. Do you know what that means? That means you took one step towards you took two steps. You took one step towards the person didn't. And then you took another step towards the person. You took two steps to the person. That person didn't take any steps. And now you're the one who's inviting yourself. Do you see? I'm going to keep reading. AI says this is why the phrase desperation is not from this world is conceptually accurate. Desperation is not rooted in reality as it is not as it is, but in a distorted internal model of reality. One that assumes scarcity where there may be delay, assumes loss where they may be process, and assumes urgency where they may be unfolding. When hope is restored, not as naive optimism, but as trust and creation dissolves. The person no longer feels rush, force, or settle. Choice returns. Discernment returns. Standards return, not because the external situation has magically changed. The internal system has realigned with time, order, and possibility. In its deepest sense, then, desperation means this: the abandonment of trust in the future. And the cure is not haste, nor attachment, nor with coherence. When trust in process is not restored, desperation is no longer possible, because the mind once again understands that life does not end at the present moment. So, ladies and gentlemen, you think it's about to end in the moment. You've made the world too small. Do you know? You have reduced yourself, and hear it from someone who lived reduced. Do you know? By myself, some sort of weird, force field when I was young, behind some weird force field when I was young. Okay. And that made me desperate. But let me tell you something that they don't even say. Let me tell you about like the next chapters of desperation. Okay. Imagine you're desperate. You're desperate. You're desperate. You're desperate. You want something, you don't get it. You keep trying, you don't get it. You keep trying, you don't get it. And you really want it, or you really want it, and then you inevitability. I believe those who acknowledge the inevitable, they solidify, they strengthen. There's one more part. I'm going to read this again. I'm going to read this. This is the research component. So the first part, I was trying to explain it a bit more. And guys, there's some proverbs versions of this, like a starving man will eat anything. There's a version, it's like a Greek proverb: a starving man does not choose his meal. There's another one from the book of Proverbs 27:7 in the Bible. It says, to the hungry soul, every bitter thing is sweet. Wow, that's very huge. That means that means to the hungry soul, that means to the desperate citizen, any unadvanced process of your civilization is good. Do you know? You'll accept it. You know? That means the moment, I think this is what the anti-human moderator, Shaitan, is trying to do. It's trying to make you feel you don't deserve your future. So you accept the present and here. There's another saying, it's again a biblical proverb. It says, if you have had enough to eat, honey doesn't taste good, but if you're really hungry, you will eat anything. There's another saying in a book called Nightfall by Penelope Dock, the starving, like a common sense observation. Yeah. And then it says, this quote is attributed to Pearl S. Buck: a hungry man can't see right or wrong. Yeah, that's exactly it. We're experiencing this on right now, biblically, in Iran. Do you understand? That means the people are starving. We experienced it in the French Revolution. When people are hungry, they don't care. They tear down walls. They destroy anything because they have to change their condition. It's very intense. Politics is very intense. Okay, I'm going to read this. So there is a saying, ChatGPT 500. There's a saying found across cultures, often phrased as, in quotations, a starving man would eat anything. While its wording varies and it has no single author, its endurance points to something deeper than a proverb. It names a law of human behavior. The saying does not describe moral failure, lack of intelligence, or weak character. It describes what happens to judgment when a fundamental human need is unmet for too long. This topic matters today because modern societies have reduced visible physical starvation while dramatically increasing psychological and relational starvation, particularly among men. It says this topic matters today because modern societies have reduced visible physical starvation while dramatically increasing psychological and relational starvation, particularly among men. Many of the most destructive personal decisions and relationships, bonding out of desperation, tolerating disrespect, or confusing relief with love, are not caused by ignorance, but by hunger operating beneath awareness. From an academic perspective, deprivation alters cognition. Psychological research consistently shows that when basic needs are unmet, the brain shifts from evaluative reasoning to survival oriented decision making. This principle was formalized in humanistic psychology, most notably by Abraham Maslow, who demonstrated that higher order judgment, discernment, and long term planning are compromised when foundational needs such as safety, belonging, and physiological stability are threatened. Yeah. Under deprivation, the nervous system does not ask, in quotations, is this healthy, compatible, or aligned with my future? It asks only, in quotations, will this reduce discomfort now? Neurobiologically, prolonged deprivation elevates stress hormones like cortisol, dysregulates dopamine signaling, and in men often destabilizes testosterone driven motivation and self regulation. In this state, attraction shifts away from compatibility and toward immediacy. Standards collapse not because the individual lacks values, but because the system is prioritizing relief over coherence. This explains a phenomenon many recognize but rarely understand. Men enter themselves sense are wrong, overlooking clear incompatibilities, or attaching rapidly to partners who soothe a temporary emptiness. In these moments, being made by integrated judgment, but by a starving system. The mind confuses proximity with nourishment and availability with sustainability. What feels like desire is often an attempt to regulate internal imbalance. Academically speaking, this is not love based bonding, it is homeostatic behavior, the organism attempting to restore equilibrium by any available means. Do you know what that means? That means a lot of human beings go into bad relationships, okay, go into relationships where they're reduced, they're forgotten who they are, or or whatever, right? Do you know? And they don't understand that if they were less hungry, they would have seen more. So, guys, this the reason human beings tolerate these things, they go through even these modes, okay, is because they're trying to bring themselves equilibrium, but they don't understand their lack of equilibrium is psychological. That means the person, right, is in the moment, okay, and the way they're looking at it is giving themselves a value. You might not understand. There's so many ways a human being has value that they don't know. Like I'm telling you, the world is a better place, okay, because you're in it. Why? Because if none of us were here, it'd just be like an empty place, right? Like, we're the stuff that's kind of like moving here to make it meaningful to some degree. Okay, where was I? Okay, neurobiologically, prolonged deprivation elevates stress hormone. No, I read this. Where was I? Okay, yeah, there we go. The most advanced view goes further and reframes the issue entirely. Hunger is not merely the absence of something, it is an active force that rewrites perception. Prolonged deprivation does not simply lower standards, it redefines what counts as acceptable. In this state, the psyche adopts a dangerous illusion. Something is better than nothing. So, ladies and gentlemen, be very careful here, and especially like both men and women need to be careful here, okay, in your relationships. Guys, what I'm reading for you is saying that when human beings don't have something, when they go into states of lack, okay, their perception, their body overrides their reasoning, okay? And we have to be very conscious of this, especially in a civilization where they're making people decide emotionally more and more and more, okay? Decide emotionally rather than analytically and reasonably. Do you know why? And do you know why? Like, I'm sorry, I don't want to go. I love women, okay? Like, sincerely. And without them, this world, I feel, would be empty, okay? But I understand that culture has used women. Okay, not let me explain what I mean by that. I'm not talking about patriarchy versus matriarchy. Okay, I'm trying to say that if you suddenly see that the behavior of men, okay, to women has been that women has been inferior, and then suddenly through cultural transitions, suddenly the focus has gone from the advancement of the male archetype to making to it's I'll give you an example. So there were women, okay, and there were men, and imagine men being up by 2 points and women being up by 1 point, okay, or what, men being up by 3 points and women being up by 1 point, okay. Now instead of like women becoming going up by 1 point and men become, so instead of women becoming 2 points and a man becoming 4 points, instead women have become 2 points and men have become 2 points. They have become less. Do you understand? In other words, I'm trying to explain something that's very important for the female philosophers of our time. Okay, and I don't know how else to explain it. I'm from the other side of the coin, kind of like, just saying, hey, female philosophers of the realm, where are you? Okay, because let me tell you, a person can act nice, but they could be using you. And it could not be a person, it could be a cultural program. It could be that what is using you is your environment, because your environment used you when you were young, and you didn't know, and it set up sequences in your reality, in your mind. Guys, I have been desperate, and desperate people deep down know they don't deserve. I don't know why. Okay, even if a desperate person receives something, I feel some part of my own soul, like, yes, in that moment takes it, but has become less. Do you know why? Because I believe the nature of the human soul is actually like a lion. It has to go through its own experience. A hyena eats anything, okay? Eats whatever carcass it finds. But a lion has to hunt. It sees, it eats what it hunts. It doesn't take what it is not real to it, what is not from its own will. Do you know what I mean? But a hyena takes anything that's from its will, okay? That's not from its will. Sorry, guys, this was on mute and I was talking. I apologize. It happens sometimes. I was saying desperation is not from this world. I said desperation to me can even be borderline satanic. Okay, a desperate person is a person possessed by the fear, that their future is not possible. Do not be desperate, and it's okay. You might not get your turn. Do you know? But wait, keep waiting, and trust that the moment knows better, even if the forms of the world may not. There is a value. The value will be, you know what this life is. You're some sort of force, and based on the quality of your energy, your actions express. That means if you are a pure being, you're nearer to the original world. If you're an impure being, I am honest with you. Okay, you are distant. You don't understand. You know, animalism is the tip of the iceberg of divinity, of a divine field. They've conditioned you. You think you are a character. That's what you're doing, yo. That's the suit you're in. That's the methods of your time. Oh, humanity. Civilization on earth. Help me advance all of us. I am here once, and so are you. I'm going to explain why desperation is satanic. Theologically, through the theological lens, guys, theologically, there is important geometry to acknowledge. Okay, I'm going to explain it to you in the way that I have that it has I have accessed. Okay. First of all, when I say something is satanic, you got to first consider everything is godly. Okay, everything is positioned by a higher power beyond the human capabilities, human abilities to grasp it. Okay, we're in the presence of a reality where we cannot ignore that there's greater intelligence than us. So, guys, wake up. Okay, it's not just human beings in the room. Terrence McKenna, even said there's another tenant in the room. Ancient religions have told you the world has had a host. So let us not ignore this intelligence. Human beings. Yeah, there hasn't been extraterrestrial contact. There's been something better. There's been contact from the outside of the religion. There's more than this world. Stay in this world if you like. Stay in one room of a mansion if you like. But I am telling you, there is forces here that are all for now unknown. It's the other way around. We're existing as a miracle and we notice the non miracles. Okay? That's when you suddenly realize that this world is not a physical place, it is a field. How do you know how you're knowing that you're knowing? It's a field, folks. You're not an idea. You're not your body only. These are nodes. You're present in a field. It is now time for the rise of the advanced humanity. Those who suddenly notice, those who suddenly feel it, that calling that comes, hilariously, like, when a species reaches the threshold of advancement. You don't understand. Mr. Within is not me, is not my name. Like I'm Amin Jabbar Ansari. Mr. Within is an archetype where, as a sort of backup system, civilizations and a catalyst for civilizations that are on the verge of it. You might not see it. And I am waiting to see who I was behind this world, after this life. You don't understand. Like, after this life, I'll be like, all right, God, before you decide I go to heaven and hell, that's your decision. Show me what I was. Show me everything. Show me all the ways that they heard me. Show me all the ways that they saw. Show me what the species sees. That means the greatest gift I can receive is an explanation from the Most High. And I've received that, but still a part of me feels I don't see it all. And that explanation is, it's beyond you. We have reached the era where talking minds will be silenced by roaring hearts, because the minds deep down seek belonging, and we seek to belong to the greatest activity. That is the basics of modern human consciousness. You want to belong. You want to be on the ship. You don't want to be in uncharted and unknown waters. This is why the psychology of humanity is to look like one another. This is why the modern human being doesn't feel alive. Nobody feels alive. They're all actors. You understand? You're all acting and dying behind yourselves. Like, not dying. I know that there is something missing behind our, something missing in front of our eyes, and it doesn't seem to be that it can be fulfilled from each side. It's like we're in like a triple-edged world, but we've been conditioned to exist in dualistically and identify singular, individually. Guys, there's more to this. I'm gonna keep reading. Did I finish or not? Okay, I'm gonna keep reading. It says, at the most advanced level, this principle reveals a critical rule for human development. Or, sorry, guys, I didn't read this part. It says this belief feels rational under something is better than nothing. This belief feels rational under scarcity, yet it is structurally false. The wrong relationship does not resolve deprivation, it compounds it. Emotional inconsistency, misalignment, or chronic insecurity increase internal stress, deepen dependence, and further erode discernment. This is why desperation based attachments often lead to ability but to exhaustion, resentment, and identity loss. Exactly, guys. The bad relationship can make you lose your identity. And your identity might be something you've been cultivating towards something. I've had people, I've been in relationships. You know how I know I haven't found my wife? Do you know what I mean? Like, because I have had people respect my talks. I've had people compliment me. I've had people appreciate the talks, and I'm very grateful for their expressions. For telling me. But you know, when nobody has come and discussed the topics with me, you're all appreciating how the talks make you feel. You're not engaging the concepts. Nobody's been like, hey, in this talk you said this. Like, do you know what I mean? There hasn't been an effort to actually care. but I know why. You know why, guys? Because it's kind of my fault. I'm actually, my personality is kind of silly. I use silliness to kind of stabilize the intensity of the seriousness sometimes I see in things. Okay, and because of that, I know it's okay. It's I'm gonna free anybody. In no way feel, you know, not actually caring for what I'm saying. You're doing anything wrong. It's like those who need to hear it, or exactly engage with it, they'll be here. It's just, it'll be funny to me, if I was alive, like actual, like the bio, the biological human was here, and they missed the human that was here, you know um that's crazy. That's crazy. Anyways, I'm gonna keep going. Emotional inconsistency. I read this. It says at the most advanced level, this principle reveals a critical rule for human development. Life binding decisions made under deprivation are almost always misalignment. Hunger compresses time, narrows vision, and prioritizes immediacy over truth. Therefore, the modern solution is not moralizing men for their choices, nor advising them simply to choose better, but addressing the condition that precedes poor choice. The updated and most effective approach is system first stabilization. Before selecting a partner, a man must restore internal sufficiency, regulated sleep, physical discipline, purposeful work, social grounding, and hormonal balance. Dignity must precede intimacy. Coherence must precede commitment. Only a nourished nervous system can perceive clearly. Only a stable man can choose freely rather than reactively. The deeper lesson then is not about relationships alone, it is about sovereignty. Hunger replaces agency with compulsion. Nourishment restores choice. When the system is fed physically, psychologically, existentially, standards naturally rise, perception sharpens, and attraction becomes selective rather than desperate. So I understand, guys, you might be seeing like all those like next level bodybuilders or whatever, or I don't know, like, like the archetype, like the general archetype for me, women need a reference point for what they like. So there is that general archetype, and it's same for everybody. I mean, of course, there's a personalized differentiation for every individual, but I'm kind of saying it like, guys, especially men. I'm even experiencing this in my life. That, like, yeah, if you're not balanced, you're not, even if you find a balanced person, you're not going to be able to have a balanced relationship. You understand that, right? So, guys, dignity must precede intimacy, coherence must precede commitment. Only a nourished nervous system can perceive clearly. Only a stable man can choose freely rather than reactively. It's the same for women, but because women usually choose men, they don't have to think about it. You know what that means? That means a woman can be unstable and the man still like wants her, or the men, I don't know. I mean, of course, women understand this, that like due to testosterone in men, um, men, it's like imagine like throughout the day some energy comes in, like you have this energy in you, okay, and this energy is not in accordance to your thoughts. It's in accordance to like this an energy excuse my language, energy you need to release. Okay. Do you know what I mean? So people do it in different ways. Usually they say that creativity is the way to release it. Now creativity can have various forms, physical, mental, even spiritual, believe it or not. You know, there's more to this for me to read. One last paragraph. The deeper lesson then is not about relationships alone. It is, oh no, I read this, but I'm going to read it again. The deeper lesson then is not about relationships alone. It is about sovereignty. Hunger replaces agency with compulsion. Nourishment restores choice. When the system is fed physically, psychologically, existentially, standards naturally rise, perception sharpens, and attraction becomes selective rather than desperate. The proverb was never an insult, it was a warning. Hunger is not love. Relief is not compatibility. And attachment formed under deprivation is not destiny. Feed the system first, then let the man choose. So, to all human beings, okay, feed yourselves first, then go to a restaurant, okay, then go and eat outside. Okay, so that's what it means. It means that I mean, I'm not saying people, like, like, I also disagree with this view that the man has to be right. So it says relief is not compatibility. Attachment formed under deprivation is not destiny. Feed the system first, then let the man choose. Let the man or woman choose. Okay. So what does that mean? That means you have to acknowledge certain aspects about yourself to be capable of maintaining yourself. I think we men should have this natural attitude, okay, especially with women, and I enjoy of it. But I'm an uncommon person, so don't take my views as like standard, as like absolute, as an absolute standard. But um, I don't know. For me, I think every person's energy functions through an intention they have of their space. Anyways, that was the end of the research component, folks. I'm gonna post it in the description sections as much as it allows, so you guys can check it out. So sorry about that, guys. To continue, so, guys, some people are born with pure confidence. I've seen these people, you know, and some people are born with the opposite. Some people are born on this planet trusting themselves, trusting the world, trusting the system, and people look at them like, yo, it's like this person's been here before, And then there's some people who they don't know who to trust, they don't know what to trust, they don't know what to do, and there's various states of consciousness. I want you to understand that when I say we must care to advance civilization, we must move towards the advancement of civilization, the advancement of humanity, the advancement of the communication that defines the human. You know, so ladies and gentlemen, some final words to conclude this lecture. Okay. So pay attention. I said desperation is not from this world. desperation from a spiritual sense, theological lens. When you look at Adam and Eve and the fall of, I guess, the divinity, divine position of man, okay, you pretty much see that this is theologically, it's something like this. Okay, if I was to explain it, maybe close to something like a film, but again, everything I'm saying can be double checked. You know, so think of it this way: there's a system admin. The system admin creates a user. The system admin imbues this user with system admin privileges, then commands this user to go in front of all of its creation, in front of all of the system, to say the divine names, to perform. Once man performs, all creation bows not to man, but to the greatness that has created man. Okay, so that was the natural. That's what God created for us. And then a secondary event happened. Okay, a moderator did not bow to the system admin, therefore committed a major theological lens of denying one of God's names, which is the all-knowing. Do you know? And pretty much it was a disagreement with a higher power. That's the story of the moderator that fell. Okay, and in Islam, Shaitan is not an angel; it is a jinn. Okay, but it was a jinn that was so pious, that was so close to God. It was a jinn that was, it was a being that was, it was not, it was a being made of smoke. Jinns are jinn kind, or you could kind of see them as demons. They're made of smokeless flame. Okay, man is made from this term, unknown term, let's call it clay, and angels are created from light, theologically. Okay, this is why when light illuminates a dark room, it's like the mercy of a higher power. When the sun comes up and the coldness goes away, and the body starts warming up and life activates, that's like the mercy of the system admin. Do you understand? The light was like the angels and God. The Egyptians thought it was the sun, but you're going to realize, no, truth is beyond the world room. Anyways, folks, and when it comes to desperation, let me tell you the transition through it. Okay, how it happens. Okay, you want something, you either get it, the desperation gets satisfied, or you don't get it, and the internal context of your identity realigns to something else. Okay, so pretty much this lecture was trying to communicate to you that in order to advance civilization, we cannot be hungry decision makers, starving for any decision just to have reality go forward. We have to have the patience to look at reality in different ways. You have to be an eagle that can land on a branch, identify and individualize through one branch of knowledge, but also have the capability of flying into an unknown sky and observing the whole forest at once. And may God bless us to remember, because the system admin, the fall of man, Adam and Eve, was that they were tested. And what that means is Adam and Eve forgot the original system admin. They listened to a simulated moderator, and their solar descendants were cast into the same test. Are you going to believe now the serpent is not a serpent anymore? The serpent has become the whole world. Okay, and now God is watching, its creation, being like, does my creation remember who created it? Does the soul, do these souls on earth remember their original commander into existence? You were commanded into existence. I know some weird societies call these things implants and whatever, but that's not the case. That's fear thinking. You don't understand the grace, the kindness, the power of peace. There is a knowing that is not, like God is a being that has not failed. It is an unmistaken position in the archetypal consciousness of man. It is that moment that cannot make mistakes. And when a being has faith in a moment that cannot make mistakes, that is all knowing and all powerful, their fear of anything has gone. And in that moment, you will realize the experience of the simulation is not divine, but everything being at all is. within the command of a higher order process, a higher order being. Do you know the lower orders now will remember? May God guide us all, because the system admin knows what the users, forget. If they listen to the mods, go directly to the system admin. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful, and the most advanced. Thank you for listening.